Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. This is a very unique service that this woman offers. Wonderful, in fact, if you're somebody that is looking for career guidance, but specifically if you're looking to apply for a job with the federal government, she can walk you through that and so much more. We're going to learn today. Tracy Harris is with us from HOPEvolution.com. Welcome. How are you doing today, Tracy?
Hello. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
This is very unique in terms of what you do, and that's a piece of it. Tell everybody, HOPEvolution, all the services that you offer today. What do you do?
Okay. So HOPEvolution, LLC, is dedicated to helping transitioning service members, both men and women, veterans and their families, take full advantage of the military buyback program through federal employment. So what we do is we help them fully understand the federal hiring process or the application process. We help them develop their professional federal resume, and once they are notified for an interview, we also offer mock interviews and help them with questions as they're going through the hiring process.
Even when it comes to the training connected to a resume, I don't care what kind of job it is, my personal feeling is you should get professional help with that, especially nowadays. And that's just a piece of what you offer. When we talk about those in the service, that would also be you. Tell me, how did you get to this point, Tracy?
Okay. Well, yes, I am a veteran, Army veteran, and also Army National Guard. Just a short, quick story. So when I was out on active duty, somehow the first sergeant found out that I could type. And so I started doing paperwork for him. And then with that, the hospital commander, because I was in a MASH unit, he found out that I was typing for the first sergeant. And that's how I got pulled into personnel administration. So from that, it built my skills over the years. And I ended up working for the federal government in administrative duties, HR specialist, and retired from the federal government. So that's why I got started. But my passion came while I was working. I was in a unit where we reviewed applications submitted by anyone, veteran or non-veteran. But when the veterans would apply for positions, for some reason they were found ineligible. Either they didn't have the proper DD-214 or they didn't translate their skills on the resume. And so therefore we could not find them qualified to move in the process. And that's what gave me the passion to start to do what I did as working for the federal government. I was one of the HR specialists who reviewed applications submitted at USA Jobs and made qualification determinations, and who were able to move on the board to the hiring manager.
Is it harder to apply for a federal job, or is it more complicated than your typical job?
I would say it's probably in a class of its own because there are so many different requirements going through the process. And of course, the overseer is the Office of Personnel Management over all benefits for the federal government. So they manage that application platform at USA Jobs. So first of all, they have a template that you can use to create your resume. However, that's the easy part. The hard part is making sure that you have those keywords in your resume, because a lot of the agencies use the applicant tracking system, and that's why a lot of people don't even hear back once they apply, because your resume didn't even make it through. And then you also have to make sure that your resume meets, of course, the qualifications, and then there's also assessment questions. Those are questions that the local HR office has drafted up as to exactly what they're looking for. sometimes those questions can be actually from one question to 300 questions. I mean, it can be involved. So yes, it's very unique.
Wow. What you just said there in terms of the screening process, the automated screening process when it comes to resumes, doesn't just apply for government jobs. It's just in general. That's why it's so critical to have somebody work with you on your resume to make sure that the right words are there. Can we just for a moment focus on resumes, some things that are important to remember? Like, for example, a lot of people, graphic programs are easy to use and they'll get real funky with the way the resume looks. But it's my understanding that don't even bother doing that because the the software doesn't need to see that. It needs to see certain words.
Right. You're totally correct. So for federal resumes, the content is what counts. You can send your resume up on a piece of notebook paper, but on that notebook paper, it must demonstrate your abilities to handle situations, handle certain tasks, take action, and get results. And so if you don't show that in your resume, um, it's pretty much a done deal. Because if you do get a chance to move through the system, then an actual person, which was the type of person I was, when we're reading, when your HR expert is reading your resume, we're going to match that with the job vacancy and everything that's required in the KSA. It's the knowledge, skills, and ability, and the specialized experience, and your assessment questions tie into that as well. And if all of that doesn't clearly state your ability to perform the job, perform the duties of the position, then you run a chance of not being found qualified.
Is it a challenge with the background screening process as well?
Oh, yes, that's a whole nother process. So if you make it through, everything's great, you get a conditional offer of employment, now they're starting your background investigation. For a time, I also helped our new applicants through the background investigation, making sure they have all the information that was required on that application. And it's very lengthy. If there was something that the OPM investigators had question about, we would have to go back and ask the candidate whatever amount of questions we needed to do. So that's a process in itself. That's another reason why it takes so long to get hired on with the federal government. Now, there are ways that they can post the positions, such as direct hire, meaning you don't have to compete. The HR specialists our managers can select a person off the list and start that whole process. But there's still processes.
Is it if you're already connected to the government, i.e., you were in the service in some form, does that make it easier than, let's say, just anybody out of the general public?
Well, it does kind of help you a little bit because you can talk to the hiring manager and say, hey, I know someone who's worked in this particular industry and knows their job really well. If they get ready to hire, please look for them on the list. So in that way, yes, just having a referral. But other than that, that person still has to meet all the requirements.
Sure.
And pass that background investigation.
So for you personally, here we are talking about helping others move their career forward, do it right, have somebody walk that journey with them to make sure that everything is in place. For you personally, Tracy, what kind of obstacles did you encounter along the way? Were there any?
Well, I would say that the obstacles came more so as I was working for the federal government because it is political. But I would say that I had some very good mentors that helped me through my career. All staff are very helpful and supportive of you, but you do have competition even within once you get hired on. But also, when building this business, I had mentors help me build this business from the ground up, because coming from the military and federal employment, my thought process is very rigid. You know, uh, make sure you underline and put your dots on and everything like that. But being creative is a process to learn once you've worked for the federal government.
I would imagine that is the discipline there helped you along the way that you garnered from the military.
Yes,
Okay.
you're right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it can be a good thing, can be a curse.
It sure
Right?
could.
Yeah.
That is true.
Walk us through a situation. So let's say somebody did some time in the military, wanted to apply for a federal position. They reach out to you. Can you walk us through some of the steps that take place?
Okay, yes. So basically, I find out how dedicated they are to start the process, since it is a long process. Then once I get an idea of that, I review their resume. And so what we do is I identify at least 3 to 5 skill sets that they have, so that I can match those skill sets with a job series that are um, developed by OPM, because those are the positions that are posted on USA Jobs. And once we identify that, then we start creating a job search process. Both myself and my client, we work as a team, reviewing the jobs. I start training them to understand what the job vacancy is really asking. Try to interpret HR lingo for them. We go through every single part of that vacancy announcement, reading through the whole thing. If anyone has applied for government jobs, just reading the job vacancy can take some time. I make sure that they create their profile. Creating your profile on USA Jobs can take at least 2 or 3 hours. Now, we also help them with their resume. So then my teammate, she's gathering information so she can start building that resume. I'm reviewing to let them know what information we need to see that they actually have performed, so we can highlight that for the recruiters, HR recruiters, in that resume. So once we've narrowed all that down, then we're on a job search um, program. So weekly, we review jobs. We come together as a team with my clients, and we discuss those jobs. We determine whether or not they would be a great fit for that job, matching their talents and skills with their ultimate goal. Um, because you can actually apply for any job you like, but why apply for 50 jobs when you can apply for maybe 10?
Sure.
um, because you may not be qualified or eligible for the jobs. And then once you start receiving notices that you're not eligible to apply to this job, you're not qualified, that's kind of discouraging. So we want to send them on a path to where they understand the reason why we're only targeting certain positions, certain job series, so they can get more positive feedback and then ultimately get that interview. So that's where we need to get you.
It sounds like you enter into a relationship with somebody that was in the military, and it is very personal, because you have to find out what somebody's desires are, what their skills are. They might not be presenting it well in their
Right.
resume, and so it's almost as if Tracy and her team go on a fact-finding mission when you work with somebody.
Yes, yes. Because you want to make sure that they don't get exhausted
Yeah.
with trying to go through this process. Um, and we want to make sure that they do get a positive outcome, and that the job fit is a fit for them.
Now, this runs even deeper. You, as I understand it, work with companies and organizations to help those To serve those who served. I guess that's the best way to say it. You have a workshop, a training workshop. Tell us about that.
Well, the training workshop is pretty much a snapshot of what I do with my clients one-on-one. So I do the same thing. We pull out those resumes, we take a look at them, we scrutinize them, and identify one job that you would love to have with the federal government, and then compare your resume to whether or not you would qualify for that job. And if you don't qualify based on the resume that you have, we start making the changes. And so, again, you have to match that resume with the job requirements, the specialized duties, what they may be looking for in a candidate applying for that position, the duties that are required on the position. Then you need to also match those assessment questions, on your resume.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is still the same thing, but it's just like a snapshot, quick course that you receive in the workshop.
We've been talking about those in the military that are looking for federal jobs, or have been, in some aspect of service looking for those federal jobs. Would you help anybody that's just looking for a government job?
Yes, sir. We sure will. I just have a heart for veterans, of course, being a veteran.
Sure.
But, yes, I'll help anyone. My other focus is with helping veterans is to get them into a position where they can buy back their military time. Basically, what that means is that once you go on active duty, your retirement system has started. So, believe it or not, you've already started contributing to your Department of Defense retirement system. So, if you leave the military, say with 10 years of service, but you go into a position other than the federal government or an organization that offers the federal retirement or the CSRS type of retirement, then that time is lost forever. But if you work back in that particular type of position, more than likely with the federal government, you can buy back those 10 years and tack that on the end of your total annuity, which puts more money in your pocket. So there's a calculation for that, and they can do that. So they can end up with 30 years of service instead of 20 years of service.
In what you just said, crystallizes for me why this is so important, because you've been there, you know all these things and how somebody's term of service can benefit them, and how it all works. You can go to a good resume writer, maybe a career counselor, whatever it might be, but they don't know the military. So that's huge, Tracy. That is really huge. I don't think, not everybody is going to know that type of information, especially those that have served.
I thank you for those positive comments, and yes, that's exactly what where the passion comes into play, because you can have 2 or 3 retirements, being in the military, and then going on to federal service, and still have a lot of life to live. So if that's what you desire to do.
Wow. So if somebody is looking, let's say they're in the military, and let's say they're out of the military, they're looking for that federal job, and they want to do it right. Let's just say that when it comes to the resume and all that, how do they reach out to you? What's the process like?
Oh, okay. Well, on my website, I have a way that you can book a consultation, which is free. And sometimes I have more than one consultation that's free, because there's a lot of information that I need to gather before I can really help you in the right way. So after we have our initial consultation, and that's at HOPEvolution.com. So it's HOPEvolution.com. So I also have you forward me your resume so I can take a look at that. Then we have another meeting. This is before I even offer to help you. Then we have another meeting giving you the results of that. And then we go again with, okay, specifically, what's your focus? What's your goal with working for the federal government? Is it just I just want to get into any position just to get my foot in the door, or am I looking to continue on in IT and do this and do that? So we need to know, because that determines how much work is going to be involved with finding the right position. So there's a lot of job preferences that I hone in on to get that process started.
What do you want people to know when it comes to applying for a federal job?
Be prepared to be frustrated if you do it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And be prepared to spend a lot of time. If you do it by yourself, it does those things. So some people get lucky and, hey, the first job I applied to, I'm in. But most times, that's not how it works.
Your prices for the work that you do, I feel, are so reasonable for what's being done. And when you think about it, it's your future. Think about what your salary is. Think about what on the other side, when you retire, what's involved with a government job. It just makes perfect sense. Stands to reason if you're going to do it right. There's no guarantees, whether you're going to get that job, whether you do it yourself or whether, Tracy, you work with them, but at least you can put your head on the pillow at night and know that, all right, when I apply for that job, I did the best possible thing I can do. And I know that my resume is the way it needs to be by today's standards, and things are changing rapidly all the time. Once again, HOPEvolution.com, HOPEvolution.com. Tracy, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate all the insight. Opened my eyes. I didn't even know this service existed. And I truly want to say, and mean it when I do, thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me on. I appreciate that.
Wonderful. And we'll talk soon. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.